I am Todd from GoodCleanFunLife.com.
And I am Tony Rousseau, no relation. We got all sorts of fun. It's been 2 weeks. It's been tons of weeks. One of the things that you may notice on my side is after being shamed on Twitter, I turn the camera around so you don't have to see my shower curtains, which really were just my regular curtains. So now you have my art collection and my piano and my cool. I got a cool record that teenagers listen to out. It's got a green X on it. It's my daughter's. I don't know.
Oh, nice.
I don't know what it means.
And I see some eyes, some creepy eyes peering back behind your shoulder as well.
Yeah, I got my first backer. We talked about that briefly. We were at, oh, I'm sorry, it's reversed. We were at Third Friday. I'm at Third Friday. I cover it for the place where I work, but they don't pay me enough to tell you where that is. But yeah, I got my first. We actually we bought a bunch of them, but this is the only original we bought. We got a couple prints and some cards. We've been talking about it. I'm a huge fan of hers, and I have been for a long time. And it's so funny. I'm not in Berlin anymore, and the idea of driving all the way to Berlin, just for an art show, just I don't know, makes me an old man. I'm like, yeah, that's awful far. We were talking to Patty about this, and it was really nice to see her. I see her she comes to Third Friday with some regularity. She's like she'll come with her family and stuff. And so I've seen her a couple times, and that's what I was saying to her. I was like, it's just on Friday. It's very much like this show, an accidental segue. It's like on Friday morning. It's like, yeah, you know what? We're gonna go down. We're gonna go to Second Friday. It's gonna be fun. And then we both get home from work, and we're like, we're gonna pour a drink and sit on the porch and go to bed early. How does that sound for a plan?
That sounds much better.
It's really, really hard. We were supposed to go. We missed the social event of the year in Salisbury. It's known as Cook and Stock, and it's held by our friends Chuck and Jessica Cook. And they invite it's like 100 people to their house. And they've got a big backyard, and they cook. And Chuck is in a band called Test Kitchen.
Yep. Yeah.
And so the band plays, and we hang out and we drink, and it's always all sorts of debauchery, and it's a lot of fun. And it was supposed to rain that day, and it did rain that day. It was the day that we had all the horrible storms, and it was like, I just got this new bottle of gin.
Yeah.
And that was it. We were like, yeah, you know what, we're gonna have to take a pass. We used the weather. We didn't have to take a pass, but we used the weather to take a pass, and it was fun. So
right.
But bringing to that is our new format, which is now this is it's still considered happy hour, right? We're trading in the rocks glass for mugs, and we'll see how that goes. I actually, for one, think that this might be better for me because I'm definitely a coffee holic, and once I get, I'm up at 7 every day and with a pod in me by 9. So, maybe I'll be more coherent. Yeah, who knows? Stranger things have happened. Yeah. For me, actually, I was saying before we got on the air, I'm just back from the gym because I go to the gym every day. It's not working anymore, but I have to keep going because if I stop going, I'm going to put on weight, and I want to at least not put on weight. If I'm not losing weight, I'm not losing weight. But I actually haven't had my first cup of coffee yet, so it's brewing as we speak. So
as the show speeds up, once
Mrs.
Russo delivers a cup of coffee, we'll understand.
Right, and she's engaged elsewhere at this point. I just noticed. I'm like, I wonder if the coffee's done, and where is she? Where'd she go?
But we have missed a couple weeks. I took a vacation, and things went crazy. A lot of things have been going on, but one of the things that we're staring down the barrel of is our 200th episode, and we always seem to change formats up every
100 episodes or so.
Maybe I'd even say every 50 episodes. So I think this is a welcome change. We'll see what happens with it.
Well, hopefully I can do something interesting career-wise in the next year, and then we can change formats again. Maybe I'll have a real name that I can say at the end of my thing. I have in my other news, my quick news. I went to Fordham, Old Dominion Brewery.
Oh, nice.
Did my first interview for the book, so now the book is officially started. And they were so super awesome there. And I'm not suggesting that anyone else does this, but they did give me 2 cases of beer when I left. I wonder how prominently they're going to feature in my book.
They understand that they print currency, and that currency can get you favor, right?
It was really cool of them. I mean, I like the guy who's running Fordham was the guy who ran Wild Goose,
right?
So he's kind of a beer guy, but he's kind of a beer operator, and no, not too many spoilers, but it's not like you're going to read the book, so. He's more of an operations guy than a brewing guy, and he was behind because they also have Old Dominion, and he was behind the move to the pinups on the Old Dominion beers. Have you seen the pinup beers?
Yes, yeah.
That was him.
Nice.
It was like, they had very, very good beer, and people really liked their beer, but when they closed their brewery, people were angry. So they overexpanded a little bit, and so when they merged with Fordham, they consolidated and they closed the Annapolis plant and they closed the Virginia plant and moved to Dover. And the people in Virginia, I mean, imagine, if Burley closed and moved to, I don't know, Hampton Roads,
Right.
You might be irritated. You might not go out of your way to buy Burley Oak beer.
Right. Well, and Hampton Roads is kind of like the armpit of the East Coast.
And that's, I mean, I think the people in Richmond might feel the same way about Dover, Delmarva.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, any word on the Rubber Soul company or the Rubber Soul Brewery?
I haven't reached out to them recently. I heard that they were open, and then I heard that they weren't open. And I've been focused elsewhere, looking to do a story on the mead people. John Talkington of Dogfish Head is trying to open a meadery in Lewis area.
Sure.
He lives in Seaford, though, so I might do a story on him for the paper. I don't know what happened. If they're not open, I don't know why. I haven't been down that way. I've been really focused in Delaware the last couple weeks. But I will reach out to him. I'll put that on my to-do list.
I think actually it was our friend Allie Baker, another content creator at a place we won't mention because they're not worth mentioning. But she's a great writer, and she interviewed him, if I'm recalling correctly. So yeah, definitely put that on the list. And I can't remember if last time we were together if I had done this already. But at Burley the canning line has come in. We put together a little video for them to sort of document the first day, the tweaking and the getting together of stuff. But it sounds like the canning is going pretty good. Brian's been running cases of beer all over town to places to carry the secret sauce and the sorry chickie, which they have initially done in the cans. But it's been So and then I guess the canning party will be somewhere down the line in true Burley style once they're good and ready for it. So
right. Well, that's what the last time I talked, I did my story on Rubber Soul maybe 3 months ago, 2 months ago. It may have been 2 months ago, and he said, "Yeah, 2 weeks," and I'm like, "Oh, don't say 2 weeks."
I've been down this road before.
I've heard that. Where else have I heard that? So, so I think I mean, he knows what he's doing. So
yeah,
I heard that they may have had a soft opening and not had a grand opening yet. But again, I'll be in charge. I will check in. I'll swing by and see with my own eyes.
Well, and speaking of new things, one of the opportunities that we had for the first time in our little production history, we've done weddings, we've done plenty of events. We had our first bat mitzvah that we covered.
Oy vey.
Oy vey is right, and I tell you what, it's a good time that they are very much into creating, an atmosphere. So it's obviously 13-year-old girl. This is actually a friend's daughter. So it was, an old college buddy. So there were other old college buddies there. But what they do so differently than any other place is there was not just a DJ. there was not just a band, but there was a DJ, an MC, and 2 party starters who
the guys in the tracksuits.
Yeah, totally. And there was a candy bar, where you just have these 13-year-old kids rush the place. The theme was candy. There's sugar everywhere. I mean, it was just like, oh my goodness, what are we doing to these poor kids? And the crash is going to be so hard and mystical at the same time. But it was a great event. It was fun, and we got to document all of that. Although at one point, this was the evening a couple of weeks ago, where ridiculous storms were coming through, and we were up in Baltimore. So there's this ceremony where the Sophie, the young girl who is being bat mitzvahed, becoming a woman, she lights candles and thanks like 13 people. So it's kind of this quiet ceremony in the middle of the reception. And all of a sudden, everybody's phone just starts blowing up because there was a tornado warning.
Oh, wow.
At the, for like Baltimore County or wherever. So, and there's a light show going on outside, but, it was, other than that, you were almost completely oblivious to how bad the storms were outside. So fortunately we survived. And it was a good time for certain.
Now, I'm sorry that I missed the canning video, but I did just see this week another Mackey's video. Was that Mackey's? Was that the 80s theme party video that I saw?
Yeah, that was a little promo for last week. Was the 80s. This week, of course, coming up on 4th of July, we'll be doing the red, white, and blue themed party, and it's great too. And we've had the conversation every year, and it's probably about this time every year. But people are still like, oh, I don't want to go to Mackey's, or they have this like chip on their shoulder about it being a young crowd, or something crazy. But it is so fun, and now it's become a game. Last week I got a picture of Kenny from OC Wasabi at Mackey's, and I'm going to make it a game of all these people who show up, who you would not expect to be there, but show up and have a good time and that sort of thing. Again, it's a theme party. Everybody's pretenses are down when you're dressed, like an idiot, and it's one of the best times in Ocean City, consistently on a week in, week out basis. So
maybe I'll show up. I could be in that picture. That would be me and Sasquatch.
It's a lot of fun, and of course we enjoy doing it. And we're so close to being able to do it live, which is one thing that I've been talking for years about doing, and having a live broadcast at 12:30 that you could tune into and see if you're not able to make it down, and see how much fun it is.
Like a weekly New Year's Rockin' Eve.
Yeah, yeah, that would be good. I like it. Weekly Rockin' Eve. Now you had a run-in with some an artist of a different type. Is that?
Yeah. So I'm doing this story, and it's hard. I wanted to say up front, you know what? It's easier to make a disclaimer. So I'm going to be honest in the beginning, and then hopefully that will reduce anything I say that is intentionally or unintentionally mean. I spoke with a couple people. It's a serious thing. This is why it's hard for me. Did a story this week. I finished writing it last night about suicides among returning veterans.
Right. Very, very serious subject.
Right. And there's this movement. It's called 22 Too Many, and apparently 22 soldiers commit suicide every day, and that is 22 too many. And I talked to a couple people, and I wrote a really nice story, a pretty nice story about it. And what I thought was cool about the story was there were these two guys. One is a high school grad going into the Army, and another is a guy who's 38 who was wounded in Bosnia. And they both, like, the kid who's going in the army, his father suffers from PTSD, and he is a poet. And the guy who was in Bosnia, still struggles with PTSD, but he's kind of found his way through it through his poetry. Poetry's not my bag, so it's important for me to say that. And I was working on the story last night, and I'm like, you know what? Let's look up some of his poetry. And so I went to look up some of his poetry, and I said, you know what? Don't. Because I Facebook stalked him a little bit, and he doesn't look like we would be friends if I wasn't writing about him kind of guy. He looks like he's very, very. And what I tried to get at in the story, but I did it very subtly because I didn't want to hit anything with a hammer, and it might not even come through. It's that subtle. But what was in my head when I was writing it is, like, if your job is to not have emotions, right? If you, like, this is a guy who didn't do well in high school. He was a truck mechanic. Eventually he went to the army and, got blown up. I mean, he can walk, but he's 90% disabled. But, he said they weren't called IEDs at the time. It was just a bunch of grenades, just a bundle of grenades they threw under our truck. So, and so and it's like discovering that, like, you can use your emotions, you can deal with them if you express them.
Right.
It's powerful, but I can't imagine, like, I'm not a poetry guy. I don't know if I've mentioned that or not. And I can't imagine what reading the poetry might possibly ruin the story for me. And I wasn't done with the story yet, so I'm like, you know what? I don't like poetry. It's okay. Yeah. I like some poetry, and I feel like I could tell a difference between. I'm like wine. I think we've had this conversation. I can tell the difference between crap wine and okay wine.
Right.
And I can tell the difference between okay wine and fantastic wine, but I can't tell the difference between pretty good wine and okay wine and fantastic wine. Like, the middle range is tough for me.
Right.
It's the same thing with poetry. I can tell really bad poetry. I can tell poetry that's okay that I don't like, and I can tell poetry that's very good.
Right.
That I do like, or very good that I don't like. But
So you didn't read any of the poetry. You did not read any of the poetry. Is that?
I didn't, and it's probably just as well, because I probably wouldn't have been able to be as even-handed as I've been.
Right.
But I mean, it could be fantastic. It could be mind-blowing. It just didn't feel mind-blowing. It feels, and that's what's important about poetry, especially if you're going to use it to solve PSD, is, first of all, don't listen to jerks like me who say poetry's awful.
Right.
But the second, the most important thing is that it's a way to engage with your emotions on the outside without having to, have a heart-to-heart with another human being.
Right.
You can just pour it out, and it's out there. And if you have the courage to share it, then God bless you. And I'm not going to give you a hard time, but I'm not going to, like, pay to go to a poetry slam or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what I was picturing, because he did a podcast, and that's as far as I got on the internet. But there is a podcast where soldiers read their poems.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to do it, because, I mean, there are guys, like, there are famous writers, and there are excellent poets who served in, for instance, Vietnam. And I'm sure that there are plenty from Bosnia and plenty from Iraq and plenty from Afghanistan who are going to find their voices and who are going to be able to do raw, important things.
Right.
I didn't want to find out the hard way that he wasn't that guy. Yeah. I'm going to have to talk to him again.
We're in a society where anybody can do anything, and I think that's a great place to be. But it's also what I've discovered, my personal preference is that let the experts be the experts. So, to put it in my world a little bit, you go to a show, you see a band, and everybody's got their phone, up to the to the performers and are recording, and I'm just kind of like, you're not going to do anything with that. Why are you recording it? Why not let me, the expert, record it, and then you can enjoy it now, and then you can also enjoy it later, and that's in the way that it should be that it should be done. I feel the same way about guns. I am not a gun person. I hate guns. And I think the only reason people have guns is because they like guns. Actually, a great comedian from Australia made that whole contention. But I also think that people who are professionals at having guns should be allowed to have guns. You know, your soldiers, your police officers, not your dime store security guards, maybe, but the professionals. So let the soldiers have their guns, and let the poets have their pen and paper.
And the other thing it's important to say about poetry, because and I believe that, like I said, I can take poetry in small doses, and I love to listen to good poetry, especially. But it's like anything else. You're not going to be a natural at it. Yes, you could be a genius. If you're a genius, you might be a natural at it. But it's something where you're going to have to write 4,000 really, really awful poems before you write one that's not awful. And it's something that takes a lot of practice. And as you were alluding to, the whole notion of the availability of self-publishing. A very good friend of mine is a publisher. She'll turn down people.
Oh yeah.
She'll be like, you know what? I don't know if this project is right for us to work together.
Right.
So, but the notion that you can be a published for a fee, you can be a published poet takes, it's tough. And it's also, it's tough for good poets to get out there. It's complex.
Well,
poetry hour. What happens? We have a morning podcast. We talk about poetry for an hour.
We switched from nightlife and beer to poetry and
coffee.
Well, and the only thing that I will say about that, as you alluded to, as a form of therapy, especially for these guys, I can imagine being somebody who's always, written, journaled, like the act of, putting your thoughts down in some capacity, especially having gone through whatever they've gone through, which I wouldn't wish on anybody. That is a very, purposeful and noble thing. Whether it's good or not is, is in the eye of the beholder, or the ear.
Sometimes I think some things are objectively good and not good. And that's why I really believe that there are. I think that you can't be wrong about what you like, but you can be wrong that it's good. And I try, and it's a pretense of mine, but I don't think it's too deep a pretense, or too shallow a pretense, I guess, is I can tell the difference between something that I don't like but is good. Like, I could see how someone would be touched by it, like, in a real way, and what you'd call like the model, and like, I'm going to try and make you feel something, like when it's like aggressive poetry, cooking.
Right. I'm doing this just to try to elicit emotion.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I catch myself doing it. I'll write sometimes, and I'll say, "Oh, that's too precious. That's got to go."
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, "It's too precious. I don't care. I like it."
Well, very good. Very good. Well, as we're winding down here a little bit, there's you got anything that's coming up? I'm stealing your lines. I don't know.
That's all right. Plugs. Please consider joining me on where I'm moving all my podcasts back too. So we're doing what we're calling the Nooner at the Beer with Strangers podcast on Thursdays. We'll be doing that at noon. And if you are a podcast subscriber, we will be streaming it. We'll be back on iTunes again this week. I had space issues. I got them organized. I went with Amazon. I didn't like it. It's yeah. Because you can store on Amazon.
Yeah, we did that for a little bit when I was up in Salisbury with Jesse.
Yeah, but the problem is that you don't know what the cost is going to be each month. It could be nothing. It could be $15. It could be $40. It could be $400. And I didn't want it to be $400. And so now I'm probably going to switch back to some GoDaddy hosting this week. And so that podcast will be up. Going to Delaware. Going to be in Ocean City, hopefully in the next couple of days, to do a beer blog on Beach City, Backshore Billy, Backshore Brewing. Be hitting Backshore Brewing this week.
Backshore, yes.
And look for a very loving blog on Fordham in the next couple of days at shorecraftbeer.com, and all sorts of other fun behind the scenes stuff that'll be announceable in the next couple of weeks. I do not have any talks coming up, but if you want me to talk, tell me. I'll come talk. What do you got going?
Have computer. We'll talk.
Absolutely.
We have. We're in the mix of it. We have two of the busiest weeks coming up ahead of us, with, of course, 4th of July weekend up at the Starboard is always a great event, typical. But the G-Love concert that happens every year there, a free concert, from a national recording. And you're like, who's Glove?
Yeah, it'll never get old in my head. I was going to not say it. I'm glad you did. But it'll never get old in my head.
So it's really, it's pretty cool to have him in such an intimate environment for free, no cover, first come, first serve. That's coming up. And then of course the bathtub races here in Berlin are right around the corner as well. So we'll be running back and forth. We're doing some fun stuff with Chesterfield Heirlooms. Our friends over there, and as I mentioned earlier off air, like we have a couple people who are helping us out, so maybe looking for some projects that are being put together by our producers, because we're no longer trying to find interns just through normal attrition, which is the only effort that we ever put into it anyway. But kind of encouraging people, it's like, hey, if you want to do what we do it for free for 5 years like I did, and be a producer. So, but we got a lot of fun stuff going on. Of course, Mackey's theme parties every Tuesday night, all through summer. So that's what we got going on.
Very cool. And I got nothing else. How about you?
I got nothing.
All right. Well, make Todd give you the sense to live in a small town.
We'll see you next week at coffee hour. I guess.